Hey guys, alright, today we're going to be watching the 6-Day War, 1967, the third Arab-Israeli war documentary by Kings and Generals. I had to think on the name for a second. I think I know a little bit about the specifics of the war. Don't know too much. This war is not talked about, like, at all in any of the classes. I think it was talked about one time in a high school class, but that was like an advanced placement history class, so it's not like a general education class. It's for people that are highly interested in history to take. And also like gives your makes your GPA look better. Um uh so and it was touched on very little. I think what was more touched on was the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, even though that was 2 decades after this. Vietnam has also talked way more over the 1967 Arab-Israeli War. However, I do think it's, from what I know, I think I mainly know the repercussions of this event, the after effects, those after effects being what we live with today. Israel kicking all the nations around its butt. So let's go ahead and hear what Kings and Generals says about the war, what they describe. Ooh, dead intro though. That's sleek. I like it. Sure, my volume is
This
good.
video is sponsored by Skillshare. Learn more about Skillshare and the exclusive offer they have for our viewers at the end of the video. Ever since the Israeli victory during the wars of 1948 and 1956, the Arab coalition, led by Egypt, Syria and Jordan, was eager to change the situation in the region by defeating Israel. Both sides understood that the conflict was far from over and were preparing for the next stage of confrontation.
Yo, the detail here on these maps. That's the United States map. I don't know what that's doing there. But like the detail here on the guns and the weaponry, it's really fucking cool.
International interference and the inability of the sides to find a settlement made one of the most iconic conflicts of the modern era, the 6-Day War, inevitable. On May 13, 1967, the Soviet Union falsely informed Egypt about the concentration of 11 to 13 brigades of the Israeli Defense Forces with an intent to strike Syria. In response, Egypt started concentrating forces along the border with Israel in Sinai, and on May 16th demanded that the UN peacekeeping forces leave the peninsula. At the same time, Israel refused the request of the UN to deploy the UNEF on their side of the border. In the next few days, Egypt, Israel, Jordan and Sudan started mobilization of their forces, Iraq sent expeditionary forces to Jordan, and Saudi Arabia expressed its willingness to participate in military actions. But the turning point, which made the full-scale confrontation inevitable, was the decision of Egypt to block Israeli ships from entering the Straits of Tiran on May 22nd and 23rd. On June 1st, Israel established a national unity government, which on June 4th decided to go to war. The Arab coalition of Egypt, Jordan.
I like this style. Oh my gosh. I kind of want to see. I'd love to see this kind of style for medieval battles that they do. Like, this is a really neat look at the map. I love this.
And Syria had an advantage over Israel in deployed troops with 240,000 against 100,000, in tanks with 2,504 against 800, and in aircraft with 957 against 300.
Yeah, but aren't those American-made planes? Like top-of-the-line American-made planes, I think. I don't know. The average quality of an Israeli soldier, though, I think especially back then, was pretty good. Their tanks, I don't know what tanks they are. I don't know if they're modern tanks for this time period, or if they were just older tanks. But I think the airplanes were like very top of the line. Let's see.
Israel planned to strike on June 5th.
My thoughts are proven correct here.
With Operation Focus, which aimed to destroy the Egyptian Air Force. Israeli media published false reports claiming Israeli soldiers were on vacation, while their pilots were carrying out training sorties as usual. Their intelligence helped make this training as realistic as possible. They also damaged the tracking antenna of the US Embassy to prevent the Americans finding out about the operation before the strike took place. The Israeli pilots were informed about the start of the operation only 5 hours in advance. At the same time, the Egyptian air defense system was effectively off on June 5th. Nearly 200
Why was the Egyptian air defense system off?
Israeli aircraft attacked 14 Egyptian airfields and caught them absolutely off guard. 338 Egyptian aircraft were destroyed and 100 pilots were killed within 3 hours. The Jordanian and Syrian air forces attacked Israel in retaliation at 11 a.m. on June 5th. The response of the Israeli Air Force was to attack their airfields, which led to the destruction of all 28 Jordanian, 53 Syrian and 10 Iraqi planes. Operation Focus was a decisive success.
Those are some well-trained pilots on the Israeli side. To be that effective in a short time span, that's really fucking impressive.
Israel lost only 19 planes in this operation and guaranteed its total air dominance for the rest of the war. The ground war was taking place on 3 fronts: the Sinai front, the Jordanian front, and the Syrian front. On the Sinai front, the Egyptian forces consisted of 7 divisions, 4 armoured, 2 infantry, and 1 mechanized infantry. Egypt had 100,000 troops and 900 to 950 tanks in the Sinai, so Israel concentrated 3 divisions consisting of 6 armoured, 1 infantry, 1 mechanized infantry and 3 paratrooper brigades for a total of 70,000 men and 700 tanks along this front.
So the majority of the
Israel's plan was to catch the Egyptians off guard by attacking simultaneously with airstrikes, and attacking through the northern and central routes in the Sinai Peninsula instead of the central and southern routes used during the Sinai War. On the 5th of June at 7:50 a.m., the northernmost Israeli division, consisting of 3 brigades and commanded by Major General Israel Tal, started its advance towards Arish through Gaza with an aim to encircle Khan Yunis, while the paratroopers were ordered to take Rafah. Initially, the Egyptians offered little resistance, since their intelligence concluded that this was a diversion rather than a main attack. However, soon resistance against the 60th Armoured Brigade ramped up. This did not stop the Israeli forces from reaching the Khan Yunis railway junction in 4 hours. Afterwards, the IDF advanced on Sheikh Zayed and defeated fierce Egyptian resistance thanks to air domination. The road to Arish was open, and by 8 a.m. on the 6th of July, elements of the 79th Armoured Battalion and the 7th Brigade entered the suspiciously quiet city. Suddenly, the Egyptians started firing from the balconies and windows, and there was a heavy battle going on for control of the city. The IDF was only able to take full control of the city after reinforcements were sent. The northernmost division then split into 2 parts. One of them continued the advance on the Suez Canal, while the second group turned south and captured Bir Lafan and Jabal Libni. Further south, on the 6th of June,
I'm sorry I'm not talking much, but like this is really well made. I'm just loving the animation style here. Because their history part of things is always really good. I trust kings and generals to provide the correct information.
The
animation
14,000-man,
style is amazing.
150-tank-strong Israeli 38th Armored Division under Major General Ariel Sharon was confronted by the Egyptian 2nd Infantry Division under Major General Saadi Naguib, consisting of 16,000 troops and 90 tanks. Israel successfully advanced towards Abu Agela. The paratroopers landed behind Egyptian positions and sowed enough confusion to weaken the artillery of the Egyptian defense, which opened the way for the IDF to capture Katef. It was followed by a fierce close tank battle, which ended in an Israeli victory, with 40 Egyptian and 19 Israeli tanks destroyed. The Egyptian forces in Sinai were still largely intact, but their field marshal, Abd el-Hakim Amr, panicked and ordered the retreat of all units from Sinai after hearing about the fall of Abu Agela. This order did not elaborate on the sequence and manner of the retreat, which only decreased the defensive capabilities of the Egyptian troops. During the following days, the IDF continued its advance westward and inflicted heavy losses on the Egyptians. Despite episodic heavy resistance by the Egyptians, as in Bin Gefgafa, the napalm bombing by Israeli aviation and the uncontrolled retreat weakened the morale of the Egyptian troops. Instead of catching retreating Egyptians, the IDF decided to capture 3 passes from Sinai to the Egyptian mainland and face the Egyptian troops there. Although the IDF was not able to stop all the Egyptian troops from crossing, these passes became a killing ground, with 10,000 Egyptians being killed in one day alone.
Holy shit.
The capture of Sinai was completed by the fall of Sharm el-Sheikh on June 7th and Ras Sudah on June 8th. On June 9th, the UN Security Council achieved armistice between both sides. Israel wanted to avoid confrontation with Jordan and Syria before defeating Egypt, but the offers of neutrality to Jordan were rejected, as the Egyptian President Nasser persuaded King Hussein of Jordan that Egypt had an advantage against Israel. On the morning of the 5th of June, both sides started to fire, but Israel attempted a last-gasp attempt to avoid confrontation with Jordan by passing its message requesting peace through the UN representative, Bull. King Hussein countered that it was too late, and the Jordanian Air Force was already on the way. Jordanian and Iraqi aviation started shelling Israeli-controlled West Jerusalem, which caused 16 military and 20 civilian casualties, with 900 buildings damaged. Israel responded with its own air attack within Operation Focus, which damaged the military aviation infrastructure of Jordan and secured Israeli air dominance. East Jerusalem was controlled by Jordan at the time, and the Jordanian army took position in the UN residency, the government house, to fire on the Israeli sector. The Jerusalem Brigade's Reserve Battalion 161 of Israel took the government house despite heavy losses and forced the Jordanians to retreat to Bethlehem. Later on that day, Israel encircled eastern Jerusalem with the Jerusalem Brigade from the south and the mechanized Harel Brigade and 55th Paratroopers Brigade from the north. A fierce battle took place for Ammunition Hill. Jordanian resistance was so strong that the IDF lost all but 2 of their attacking officers and achieved the goal only after 4 hours.
Damn.
The 55th Paratroopers Brigade afterwards drove eastwards, reaching Mount Scopus and defeating the other Jordanian positions around the American colony. Towards the evening of June 5th, the mechanized Harel Brigade succeeded in taking Latrun and Ramallah. Also, the 163rd Infantry Battalion secured Abu Tor and cut the Old City from Bethlehem and Hebron. On June 7th, the Israeli Minister of Defense, Moshe Dayan, ordered the IDF to enter the Old City, despite reservations and concerns by the Israeli government. The fighting was conducted solely by the paratroopers out of fear of destruction of holy sites. The IDF took control of the Old City with little resistance. Judea, Hebron, Bethlehem, and Nablus were also captured by the IDF on June 7th. remnants of the Jordanian army fell back into Jordan. Israel was victorious on this front as well. Syria also believed Nasser about Egypt's early success in the conflict and sent its aviation to attack Galilee. This attack was intercepted by Israeli aircraft. A minor ground attack was also attempted by the Syrians, hoping to capture the water plants at Tel Dan, Dan and Shia Yashuv. This was repulsed by the IDF as well. Israeli air domination, lack of communication by Syrian units, and tanks being too wide for bridges were among the causes of the unsuccessful attack of the Syrians. This caused them to abandon any attempts to make ground offensives on Israel, and airstrikes were chosen as their...
It's just crazy that all of this is happening within 6 fucking days. Just 6 days and all this shit is happening. That's just
method instead.
Crazy.
However, on the evening of June
so
5th,
fast.
Israel struck Syrian airfields as part of Operation Focus, destroying 2/3 of the Syrian Air Force and forcing the rest out of the conflict. The Israeli leadership was unsure whether to attack Syria or not. On one hand, Syria was using the Golan Heights to shell Israel. On the other hand, it would have been a literally uphill battle against a fortified enemy. But intelligence about weakened positions of Syria in general, and in Golan Heights in particular, led Dayan to order an offensive on Golan without government authorization. The Israeli offensive started with airstrikes, which severely damaged the defensive infrastructure and morale of the Syrian army. The 8th Armoured Brigade, led by Colonel Albert Mandler, advanced into the Golan Heights from Givat Haim. Heavy fighting in unfavourable terrain led to numerous casualties on both sides, but with the help of their aircraft, the IDF ultimately captured the Zora, Kala and Ein Fit fortresses. In the central sector, the Israeli 181st Battalion captured the strongholds of Dardara and Tel Hilal after fierce fighting. By the evening of June 9th, Israel reached the plateau, which allowed reinforcements to join them. By dawn, Israel had 8 brigades ready for an assault on the second line of defences. Soon, a ceasefire was negotiated around the so-called Purple Line. By the 11th of June, all military actions stopped. Up to 983
15,000 died on the... Hold up, no. Proper number is 17,000, over 18,200 died on the Arabic side, and only under 1,000 on the Israeli side. Damn, that's a big difference. That is a huge difference. Holy crap. Wow. I wish, he never said it in the video. So I'm wondering if it was just superior planning and trickery that the Israelis had the advantage with their aircraft, or if Israeli planes were actually just higher quality over the Arabic aircraft. You know the answer, please do let me know, because I have no clue. I lean towards that the Israeli forces are better supplied and have more modern equipment than the Arabic forces here. Just because of, who's paying which side.
Israelis, 15,000 Egyptians, 700 Jordanians and 2,500 Syrians were killed in action. Israel gained a huge victory. It seized the Gaza Strip, the Sinai Peninsula, the west bank of the Jordan River, including East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights. About 1 million Arabs were placed under Israel's direct control in the newly captured territories. The Israeli victory came as a result of more efficient military leadership, better preparation of troops, and intelligence. But the Six-Day War was by no means the last conflict, and merely 6 years later, the confrontation escalated into another war. The sponsor of this
That was a good video. Let's go here to the final image here of the end of 6. This was a good video. I really like the animation style that they went for here. It is different than their usual style, so I really like that they switched things up when they made this video. I think I personally, honestly, I think I prefer this style from them over their usual style. Just the way they did the sweeping camera movements over the map and whatnot, I thought that was really, really cool. But yeah, this war, it's really hard to truly understand its side effects because, you know, you're kind of still living with the after effects of this war because the troubles in this region here still there. They haven't gone away. In some cases, you could argue that they've probably gotten worse, maybe better, depending on how you want to look at it. Since, you know, they haven't had a war like this in a long time. But yeah, that's gonna be it for the video today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to leave a suggestion down below for what you want to see me react to next, and I'll see you guys in this video. Thank you.